You are Locked On 49ers POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports San Francisco on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On 49ers. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR, and tonight, absolutely nothing worked for the San Francisco 49ers as they fell to the Los Angeles Rams 12-16 at a rainy Levi's Stadium on Thursday Night Football. The offense was horrendous tonight for both teams, but especially for Brock Purdy and the 49ers, who generated just 191 total yards and 0 touchdowns. The defense looked great, while Dre Greenlaw, who made his much-anticipated return, was in the game. But after he left in the second half, Kyren Williams found much more room to run for the Rams, and they were able to get into scoring position and kick a ton of field goals in this one, and were able to dig it out 12-6. And to make matters worse, Deebo Samuel turned in another terrible game, dropping a would-be touchdown, missing blocks in the run game, and failing to make any kind of an impact just days after stirring up controversy on social media. The vibes are not vibing. We'll break it all down, but first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports San Francisco YouTube channel. Please hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. Thanks also for listening on the Locked On 49ers podcast feed, making us your first listen following these 49ers games. Make sure to check out the Locked On 49ers Daily Show for more in-depth coverage. Brian Peacock does a great job. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. And in this one, as I said, the 49ers defense came out hot. I was really impressed by what I saw from the secondary in this one. Nick Bosa looked fast early on. Dre Greenlaw looked fast. He looked like he had zero hesitation to plant that foot and go on and put all his weight on that ankle, on that Achilles, and he looked phenomenal. I mean, him and Fred Warner out there together, and Talanoa Hufanga, who I thought played a phenomenal game, especially in the first half in this one. They were just tackling everybody. There was no sideline to sideline, holes for the Rams. I mean, you've seen teams all year beat the Niners to the edge, and today that simply did not happen while Dre Greenlaw was in the game. And there was no push up the middle either from that Rams offensive line, at least until the second half. And in the early on in this one, though, I thought that the 49ers defense was phenomenal, save for those 2 dropped interceptions. Now, that first drive, Deommodore Lenoir lets one go right through the wickets, right through his hands, and it was a sure pick. I mean, he jumped the route, he read it all the way, and I don't know how he missed that ball. I think he makes that catch, that interception, I think probably 9 times out of 10, and that was the one time that he did not come down with it. Baffling to me that he missed that one. And then just moments later, Talanoa Hufanga takes one right to the chest, right between the numbers. We'll give him a little bit more forgiveness on that since he's playing with that club on one of his hands. But hey, we've seen Patrick Willis make an interception with that club hand. I'm pretty sure he did during his rookie year. And, I think that Talanoa Hufanga should be able to do the same thing if Pat Willis, the linebacker, was able to do that. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but I'm just saying, hey, it would have been nice to have one of those 2 interceptions. There were also a ton of tip balls that the 49ers were not able to come down with that just hung up in the air forever, it seemed like. And I just had Tim Ryan, the color commentator on KMBR for the radio broadcast of the 49ers, just had Tim Ryan's voice in the back of my head, him saying, tips and overthrows, got to get those. And the 49ers didn't. They didn't get the tips. They didn't get the overthrows. They let them fall to the ground, and it just was that close, that slim of a margin in this one. Josh Carty, who I had the privilege of watching here at Stanford football during my work down there. I work on the Stanford football broadcast and basketball broadcast with Troy Clarity and John Platts. And I got to see Josh Carty all year last year, kicking for Stanford, breaking records just down there in Palo Alto. So he returns back to basically where he played his college ball down there in the South Bay. And so he had no problem kicking in this Bay Area drizzle. And he had a ton of field goals tonight, lifts the Rams to the win. All 12 points coming off of Josh Carty's foot tonight. So same with the 49ers. All 6 of their points came off the foot of Jake Moody. So it was just a battle of kickers A lot of punts in this game. So if you love watching punts, if you love watching field goals, this was the game for you, man. Again, 191 yards of offense for the 49ers. That's not just a season low. That's the second worst offensive output in the Kyle Shanahan regime. I mean, this is dating back to like the days of CJ Beathard and like all those other guys that Brian Hoyer and all that kind of stuff. That's included in this Kyle Shanahan regime. So a little nerve-wracking that this 49ers offense looks this bad right now. I know it's raining, and I know that they have just a plethora of injuries, a cornucopia of injuries. Half this team, especially at key positions, I mean, you're missing Trent Williams. That's a big deal. You're missing your three running backs, your first, second, and third stringer, because don't forget about Eli Mitchell, who got hurt at the beginning of the season. You're also missing Jordan Mason, and you're also missing Christian McCaffrey. You're on your fourth running back, and I mean, that's Isaac Guerendo, who's been running pretty well, but it's tough to lean on that guy in a situation like this on a rainy day behind an offensive line that's banged up. So the Niners had an uphill climb here, and it was just too much for them. I mean, I do think that ultimately they are a more talented team than this Rams team that they just lost to, but the 49ers have been battling these injuries all year long. And again, it's at these very, very, very key positions. The 49ers have had more Pro Bowlers miss games this season than any other team in the NFL. It's been insane. 43 games missed by Pro Bowlers this season. No Malik Mustafa as well for the 49ers today. And Dre Greenlaw, when he was in there, the 49ers defense looked phenomenal. As soon as he came out, they could not stop Kyren Williams. Just kept getting push after push after push. They converted on 3rd and 5 on the ground. That was a huge, huge, huge third down conversion for the Rams in this one. And it just seemed like the 49ers defense lost their ferociousness, lost their tenacity without Dre Greenlaw out there. They just lost their nastiness. There was no, bully ball happening out there for the 49ers. They weren't punching other teams in the mouth the way that we saw them last year and those prior years. This 49ers defense had that reputation a couple years back where like every week after the team would play the 49ers, they would lose the next week. And it was largely attributed to how much this 49ers defense just absolutely pummeled their opponents. And they're not doing that this year. They're just simply not doing that. The opportunities that they have to make these big hits, to have these big plays, they seem to whiff on them a lot of times. I mean, talked about those interceptions that they missed at the beginning of this game that could have been a big difference in this one. And it's not all on the defense at all. I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown in this one. That's pretty solid. But the 49ers offensively could not move the ball. And we talked about that a little bit in the lowest offensive output from the 49ers in the Shanahan regime. But man, we got to talk about the Deebo situation a little bit later on, but just playing into how terrible that offense was. Deebo dropping a would-be touchdown pass over the middle on a slant route where he had blockers out in front of him and no defender really near him, and he could have just run forever, clear path into the end zone, drops that pass. And I mean, we got to get into all of the permutations, all the permeations from this the comments he made on social media about needing to get the ball and how he's not struggling, just needs the damn ball. We got to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But man, it wasn't just him either. Like the Brock Purdy interception at the end of this one that basically ended the 49ers season. There's now, with the loss, less than a 1% chance for this team to make the playoffs. And that Brock Purdy interception, man, we're going to go deep into that one as well. There's absolutely no excuse for Brock to throw that pass. There was a lot of other things happening on that play that I don't blame it all on Brock. But, I mean, zero at the end of the day, zero excuse for throwing that pass in that situation when you absolutely had to have it. But this one was just so hard for the 49ers to get any momentum going, and they never seemed to be able to commit to the run game. And Guerendo, again, I thought had a decent game, especially later on in this one. He was starting to really get some things moving. He had 16 carries, 57 yards, only a 3.6 yard per carry average. But you saw him getting some bigger gains towards the end of this game when they would actually go to him on the ground. He was able to get some chunk plays. And it's not like you were chasing multiple scores here. You just needed one touchdown. So I have no idea why the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan completely abandoned the run game in the second half. Shanahan acknowledged it himself going into halftime. He said that they didn't run the ball nearly enough in the first half. They didn't get anything going on the ground, and it just didn't happen for the 49ers. rushing the ball or throwing the ball, really. They also didn't do a good job of getting Brock Purdy out in space and allowing him to use his legs. That's one of Brock's best abilities as a quarterback, is to break the pocket and to get outside and make some things happen, playing that backyard football kind of like Brett Favre style of quarterback. But credit the Rams defense for having that containment, that pocket presence around Brock Purdy. It seemed like every one of their sacks, it wasn't just one guy breaking free. It was the pocket itself crunching in around Brock Purdy. And that's the way that you got to get to him, because, you can't let him get out of the pocket. The Rams did a really good job of making him stay in there and then squeezing it. And I mean, for the Rams, just an awesome game by their front four. Kobe Turner, especially, he was really, really good in this one, had 2 sacks, and just seemed like he was in on every single hit with Brock Purdy. If he wasn't the one hitting him, he was right there next to whoever it was. And so it was really, really, really just havoc for the 49ers in their backfield all day long. And just nothing for the 49ers offensively. I couldn't get the run going, couldn't get the pass going. At least the run game had a little bit more going in the second half. But man, it just wasn't there for the Niners today. George Kittle leading the team in receiving yards, as he usually does this season, 61 yards on his 4 receptions, 7 targets. Not enough. We got to get George the ball more. He has been the best playmaker for the 49ers this season. But, at this point, you're just kind of playing for a consolation prize, because with this team, the goal every year is Super Bowl. It's not have a nice season and get some moral victories. There are no moral victories right now. This team, after going to the NFC Championship for as many times as they have in the Kyle Shanahan era, for them to come out this season and turn in this type of performance, it's a gut check. I mean, this team did not show a lot of heart this year, outside of Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and Brock Purdy in a lot of moments as well. I just didn't really see a lot of want to from a lot of the guys on this team. The defense just constantly giving up third downs, just big plays after big plays. The mental lapses in just games where they could not tackle their opponents, and the drops on offense. It has just been one thing after another. But to me, the one guy who has been checked out the most, and we got to talk about it, is Deebo Samuel. And I love Deebo. I'm so high on him coming into this season. I spent the most money on him of any wide receiver in my fantasy football auction draft. I was so high on Deebo Samuel. I thought for sure he was going to have a great year this year, that he was locked in, and that he was going to, just kind of keep evolving as this mega X factor and being the most unique weapon in the NFL. He went backwards by a lot. I mean, the opposite direction of where we thought he was going to go. Let's talk about that next on the Locked On 49ers postcast. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And the 49ers absolutely did not cover the point spread tonight. They were 2.5-point favorites coming into tonight on FanDuel. And I mean, they didn't even win. They didn't even get the money line. So, I mean, this was a very popular game for people picking the over too after the Rams' massive offensive eruption last week. The 49ers offense seemed to be clicking again. That did not happen either. But there's always next week. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets on FanDuel if you win your first $5 bet. Just join FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's show is also sponsored by Gametime. I love live events, from concerts to sporting events and everything in between, and I rely on Gametime to get my tickets. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. Makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I also love the all-in pricing feature. Toggling this feature on shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Gametime also gives customers the lowest price guarantee, where Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And with Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Receipt of copy does not constitute an order. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and tonight, 49ers season basically just ended. At least their playoff, their hopes of a playoff run, their hopes of a Super Bowl, the quest for 6, all that ended, at least for this season tonight. The Warriors. The Niners have absolutely no shot at getting into the playoffs. I mean, I guess it's still mathematically possible, but I mean, you need a lot of help. And I just don't see that happening. You've now been swept by the Rams this season, lost both of those games. You split the games with Seattle. You got one more coming up against Arizona. You lost the previous matchup there. I expect them to also lose that final game, that Week 18 matchup to Arizona. And oh, by the way, you absolutely need to win out. And you need a lot of other help if you're going to make the playoffs. And you got the Detroit Lions still on the schedule, who have only lost 2 games all season long. And definitely will not be losing to this 49ers team the way that they have been playing as of late. So for all intents and purposes, this was the 49ers funeral game. And perhaps the single biggest moment, I mean, the Brock Purdy interception, you could make the case that that was the biggest, miscue for the 49ers. But I would go a different direction. I would make the case that the biggest miscue was Deebo Samuel dropping that slant route over the middle. I mean, you didn't even need to be in that desperation situation where Brock was trying to make something happen on that 3rd down by just hucking one up into the end zone. You had an opportunity to score a touchdown right in front of you. I mean, Deebo Samuel dropping that slant route over the middle. He had blockers in front of him and a clear path to the end zone. And this man just dropped it. I mean, Brock put a perfect ball on him. You couldn't hand it to him any better than that. And Deebo just dropped it. And this is coming on the heels of this guy going to his Twitter or X account, if you're one of those who gets particular about that. I still prefer to call it Twitter. I don't know why. I just do. It's the Bird app. You know what I mean? But the point being, Deebo goes on social media and moans and complains about not getting the ball, and he tweets out that he is not in a slump. He's not struggling. He just needs to get the ball. My guy, this season has been your worst season probably since your rookie year. I mean, this has been just pathetic, but absolutely pathetic for Deebo Samuel. 553 yards of receiving yards this year. That's, I mean, on 40 receptions, that's not nearly enough for what the 49ers are paying him. He has 1 touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. He also has 1 rushing touchdown. He's got 32 rushing attempts for 92 yards. That is not a very good yard per carry average. I mean, this whole season for Deebo Samuel has been marred with drops, with him just looking out of position. And tonight, it wasn't just the drops for Deebo. This guy was missing blocks. If you were checking out Deebo in the run game, this guy was just missing blocks, which is something that is, I mean, a cardinal sin for this 49ers offense. One of the best things about this run game is that everybody buys in. All the receivers, Jawan Jennings blocks his mind off every single game. He's just grabbing some dude and putting him into the bench every single game. You see Brandon Ayuk when he's healthy out there doing the same thing. George Kittle, we don't even need to talk about George Kittle. The single best run blocking tight end in the game, who is like a starting tight end and not like a specialty guy who only comes in those situations. You have to be able to block in the run game if you're going to play wide receiver on this offense. And Deebo Samuel absolutely did not hold up his end of the bargain on that tonight. It wasn't just the drop pass over the middle, although that was his biggest sin, his cardinal sin of the night. That obviously, you look at the final score, 12-6, he catches that ball and takes it to the house. That's 7 points. That's a 49ers win for you tonight. You don't even need Brock in that situation late in the game, chucking up that deep ball into the end zone that ends up getting picked off. That was a horrible, horrible decision by Brock, which we will get into next. But Deebo Samuel, there's no way that this guy can remain a captain on this team. Absolutely no way. After what he's been doing this year, especially lately, I mean, complaining on social media about targets and not getting the ball, and then going out in the very next game and dropping the game-winning touchdown pass in the most pivotal situation, the most crucial moment of the 49ers season, and you failed the team, like absolutely failed the team. This guy needs to own up to these things. Like, he refused to speak to the media after he had that terrible game a couple weeks ago. I mean, there's been zero accountability on his part. He needs to admit that he's been struggling. There's no more, fake narrative that you can peddle out there that you just need the ball and more opportunities. You've got 40 receptions this year. You've had a ton of targets this season. I mean, just today, Deebo had 7 targets. He had 16 yards. He had almost half as many targets as he did yards. That's insane. And this is when the 49ers were attempting to force feed him the ball. They also gave him a couple runs. He had 2 rushes, a whopping total of 3 yards. I mean, Deebo has been so bad for the 49ers this year. And after they rewarded him with that massive contract extension, and with Brandon Ayuk out, he has not stepped up at all. Jauan Jennings has done everything he could do. George Kittle has stepped up in a big way. But Deebo Samuel is just, seems like not a very good guy to be in the locker room with right now. Like, he just seems, he's probably not in the best headspace. He does not seem, very great with the media, although I don't know anybody that would be after playing the way that he did. But just some of the things that he's doing are just compounding the problem and making things worse. And I just need Deebo at this point to just shut up and go out there and catch the damn ball. Stop yapping and just go play football. You remember Deebo, from the guy that you are nicknamed after from the movie Friday? That guy doesn't do a lot of talking. He's about his business. I need you to be about your business, Deebo Samuel. Stop talking. Go catch the ball, score some touchdowns, bully your opponent like you did in the prior years when you were an all-pro on this team, when you were one of the most dynamic receivers in the game. Turn back into that guy. Stop yapping. Just go play football, man. Just go play football. We got to talk about the Brock Purdy interception, man. That play was just beyond me. Why the hell Brock threw that pass in the first place? Not all on him. There were a lot of other things happening on that play, but just inexcusable way for this season to end. Let's talk about that next. Brock Purdy's blunder that basically is the nail in the coffin of the 49ers season. That's next on the Locked On 49ers postcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program. The possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. I love using points for travel, and Built makes it so easy to turn rent into rewards. So if you're already paying rent, why not make it work for you? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and tonight, 49ers season basically ended at the hands of Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. 49ers fall 12-6 in a field goal battle that Josh Carty ended up coming out on top of between him and Jake Moody. A lot of punts in this one. The Rams' first 4 possessions ended in punts. The 49ers, not a whole lot better. They got a field goal, but also a ton of punts in that first half. In the second half, the Rams moved the ball much better on defense, namely because Drake Greenlaw was not out there, and they were able to build a little bit of a lead, put the 49ers in a hole, and they were pressing to get back into this one. And on one of their most promising drives of the night, they were moving the ball well. Garendo had just ripped off a 10-plus yard run. Brock and Jennings have a miscommunication. It looked like Brock thought that Jauan Jennings was going to keep running up that sideline, and Brock sailed one way over his head while Jauan Jennings stopped and right into the arms of the Rams safety, essentially ending this season for the Niners. The Rams just sit on the ball for the next few minutes, kill the clock. The 49ers had one more chance after that, but just not really anything that they were able to do in the minimal time that they had. But again, miscommunication, bad overthrow. But I don't know why Brock threw that ball in the first place. I mean, Jennings is outside the numbers. He's got a defender below him, a defender above him. He's bracketed. I don't know why Brock Purdy is chucking that ball up there. And maybe he just didn't see the safety on the backside because he had so much pressure in his face. It was like the entire Rams defensive line in the 49ers backfield ready to pounce on Purdy. There were like three defenders right in front of his face hitting him as he was falling backwards, throwing off his back foot, but still an absolutely inexcusable pass. I mean, there's no reason that you need to throw that ball in that situation. A field goal would have kept you in the game, and you were in field goal range. The 49ers line of scrimmage on that play was at the 33-yard line. So you're at the very edge of Jake Moody's range where you kind of still feel comfortable that he's going to make it. And you can't throw that pass. You just can't. You have to live to fight another day. You can't just throw it up. And I get that Jauan Jennings has absolutely mossed some dudes this year. I mean, we have seen some clinic from wide receiver tape from Jauan Jennings this year. He has just been phenomenal for the 49ers, using that big body, that big frame, and going up and over guys. And just, I mean, I don't know another word to explain it other than just mossing fools out there. But he tried to, I think, give him an opportunity to do that. But again, the miscommunication between Brock Purdy and Jauan Jennings, the overthrow that just, I mean, was nowhere close to Jennings. And the only guy really in the vicinity was that Rams safety who ended up coming down with it. And it was just not a situation the 49ers even needed to be in. If Deebo Samuel had just held on to the damn ball earlier on that slant route that we had just talked about, where he just dropped the game-winning touchdown, the potential game-winning touchdown would have put the 49ers ahead. It was still a ton of time left in the game at that point. I guess anything could have happened after that. But if the rest of it continued to play out how it did, 49ers would have won this game if Deebo Samuel caught that touchdown pass. And you don't want to put your offense in a position where they're chasing points late in the fourth quarter. And that's exactly what they were doing. All these things considered, I mean, yeah, the blame falls on Brock for throwing that ball up there. I'm sure he's going to sit up there and take full accountability for it. But this offensive line has been pretty garbage all year long. They have not been good in pass protection. The run game has not looked the same in a large part. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey hasn't been there. Yeah, that's obviously a huge part of it. But those holes aren't really looking the same either. I mean, Mason, when he was hitting them, he was carrying like 4 or 5 defenders with him, dragging them for like 3-4 yards every single play. It's not like he was running through these huge holes in the offensive line. Guerendo, a very similar runner to Mason, although kind of different body types. Guerendo, big body, uses that big frame of his to just fall forward and gain extra yards every single carry. And it helps him, helps that yards per carry a lot, helps him not have negative plays. But point being, the 49ers run game hasn't really been that great this year. And when it has been, it has not been because of the offensive line. That line's been very average. Really missed Trent Williams these last couple of weeks. And I mean, it's just one of those years. I mean, 2020, the 49ers had a really rough injury year then as well. And this one is just another one of those years, man, where I just don't, ultimately, I just think it was the injuries that were too much for the 49ers to overcome. This roster, I think, was talented enough to pivot and still make the playoffs, but they just didn't do it. For one reason or another, a ton of different reasons really combined to make it just impossible for the 49ers to be able to shift and focus on the run game when they really needed to. And this wasn't the only time that that's happened this season. There's been plenty of games this year where the 49ers have abandoned the run, and it's really, really just hurt their offense because it puts them, in 3rd and longs and constantly just mental lapses. It seems like every game there's a different one. This one, it was drop passes and dropped interceptions. In prior games, it's been penalties. In other ones, it's been special teams. There's always one aspect of the game with this 49ers team where they just don't hold it up. Like, they can't play a full, complete game. There's a lot of things that need to change on this 49ers team. The defense has progressively gotten worse and worse and worse, and I think that is namely because of the coordinator position. I do not think Sorensen is the guy for the future as the D coordinator. I mean, just absolutely unable to generate any kind of pressure on the quarterback without Nick Bosa. And if you need Nick Bosa to be able to generate pressure on an opposing quarterback as a defensive coordinator, maybe we can go find another guy who can scheme something up and doesn't need the best pass rusher in all of football in order to be successful. I mean, you should be able to have some success without the singularly best defensive end in football. Like you shouldn't need that to be successful. I think that's an indicator that the coaching isn't really doing what it needs to do, that the players are doing what they need to do, but the coaching needs to be better. Not all the players, but at least, Nick Bosa is. But a lot needs to change with this team going forward. I think the 49ers need to not completely tear it down and rebuild, but you got to restructure some stuff. You've got to start thinking about life after Deebo, about life after, some of these other key 49ers members, like Charvarius Ward gave up that massive play to Puka Nacua on that double move. I mean, he was in single coverage. Puka's a great receiver. It's going to happen sometimes, but that secondary played a great game for the majority of this one. You just extended Lenore. Does that mean Ward is going to be the one to go? I mean, you got to restructure a lot of different things on this defense going forward too, if you want to be able to keep some of these key guys. I mean, what do they do with Dre Greenlaw? There's a lot of questions that the 49ers need to answer going forward. But there's one thing that we don't have a question about anymore, and that is how this season will end. It will end with the 49ers going to Cancun while everyone else is in the postseason. This 49ers season will be ending, I guess in January is when we're going to have the last regular season game, which is weird to say, but it's no playoffs for the 49ers this year. This is how this season ends at the end of week 18 against Arizona. That's when this season ends. Nothing more. And this is a solid look in the mirror moment for every single player on this team, for Shanahan as a coach, for virtually everybody in that organization. This team has maybe been the biggest underachiever in all of the NFL this year. Possibly. I mean, the Cowboys pretty bad underachievers too. They also had some, key injuries. Obviously, you lose your quarterback to injury. It's a pretty big deal. But I mean, my vote for the biggest underachiever this year, probably the San Francisco 49ers in all of the NFL. That's all the time that we got for you guys today here on the Locked On 49ers postcast. This one just miserable way to watch this season end. 49ers funeral game as they lose to the Rams 12-6 in a rainy Levi Stadium. Brock Purdy just 14 of 31, 142 yards. The offense as a whole, 191 total yards. Failed to crest an even 200 yards of total offense. That's the second worst offensive output in the Kyle Shanahan era. And the defense just couldn't stop the run after Dre Greenlaw was out. It was a perfect storm for the 49ers in this one. Kyren Williams is a beast, 29 touches, 108 yards on the ground. It was just a bad way for the season to end, and for it to come at the hands of the Rams just makes it even worse. I hate every single Los Angeles sports team with every fiber of my being. This sucks. And with that, that's all the time that we got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out the Locked On 49ers podcast daily show with Brian Peacock after watching this one. Thanks for tuning in as your first listen following these 49ers games. We'll be coming to you live next week as the 49ers continue their season, just rolling along. We still got Miami coming up next. 49ers traveling to Florida. That's on the 22nd, just before Christmas. So happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating this holiday season. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.